Iraq is one of those countries that almost everyone has heard of, but few really know much about. It may seem like just a place marked by conflict and deserts, and yes, that is part of its recent history. But what many people forget is that we are talking about a land that was once the center of the world. It was here that the first cities were born, where some of the oldest stories of humanity emerged, and where traditions that have spanned millennia are still preserved today. Today, Bello Mundo will take you to one of the most fascinating, complex, and surprising places on the planet: Iraq. Number 1. Location and geographical data. Iraq lies in the heart of the Middle East, in a region known in ancient times as the Fertile Crescent, a name that aptly describes the area where the first civilizations in history emerged. Two rivers run through the country from north to south, the Tigris and the Euphrates. It was between these rivers that the first cities, irrigation systems, and writing were born. Even today, these rivers sustain much of the agriculture in a territory that, outside these banks, is dry and scorching. In the north, the landscape changes. The Kurdistan region is mountainous with peaks over 3,000 meters high. The climate there is milder, and it even snows at certain times of the year. The center and south of the country are dominated by arid plains, with little vegetation and intense heat. There are also deserts, such as An-Nafud, with dunes that seem to go on forever. The climate is extreme. In summer, temperatures easily exceed 50 degrees Celsius. In winter, especially in mountainous areas, the cold can be surprising. The capital, Baghdad, is located in the center, on the banks of the Tigris River. With almost 8 million inhabitants, it is a mixture of history, urban chaos, and constant attempts at reconstruction. Despite having a small strip of coastline on the Persian Gulf, the country has never had a maritime vocation. Life has always revolved around the rivers. And if in other countries 40 degrees is already frightening, in Iraq it is routine. In Basra, for example, the heat reaches 52 degrees, the streets empty during the day, shops open at night, and the power fails just when it is most needed. In recent years, the heat has gained an ally: dust storms. The orange sky covers everything, flights are canceled, and the government even declares holidays to keep people at home. But when the air clears and the sun sets, Baghdad becomes a movie set, with that golden evening light hitting the buildings and minarets. Number 2. History. Few places in the world have as much history as Iraq. The region is known to historians as Mesopotamia, which in Greek means land between rivers. The name makes sense. It was between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers that the first cities of humanity emerged, such as Ur, Uruk, and Nippur. These cities were inhabited by peoples such as the Sumerians, Akkadians, Babylonians, and Assyrians. It was there that writing was born. The first recorded laws appeared, such as the Code of Hammurabi, and giant temples, the ziggurats, were erected in honor of the gods. Some of these buildings even inspired biblical passages. The most famous is the Tower of Babel, which many believe existed near ancient Babylon. Over time, the region became the target of disputes. Persian, Greek, Roman, Arab, and Ottoman empires passed through, leaving deep marks. In the 20th century, with the end of the Ottoman Empire, Iraq came under British rule. In 1921, it became a monarchy. But in 1958, a revolution established a republic. From then on, the country experienced successive coups and dictatorships. It was against this backdrop that Saddam Hussein came to power in 1979. In the 80s, Iraq fought an 8-year war against Iran. Then, in 1990, it invaded Kuwait, leading to the Gulf War. And in 2003, it was invaded by a coalition led by the United States, under the allegation, never proven, that the regime was hiding weapons of mass destruction. Saddam was captured, tried, and executed. Since then, the country has been trying to rebuild itself, even with internal and religious conflicts still in the way. Number 3. Babylon and Saddam's obsession. Still on the subject of history and Saddam Hussein, it is impossible not to mention one of the most emblematic cities of antiquity, Babylon. This legendary city stood on the banks of the Euphrates River, one of the great rivers that cross Iraq, and was essential for the birth of the first civilizations. Babylon was the capital of one of the most powerful empires in the ancient world. It rose to prominence under the reign of Nebuchadnezzar II, who ordered the construction of monumental works such as the Ishtar Gate, a portal covered with blue bricks decorated with designs of sacred animals, and, according to some accounts, the legendary Hanging Gardens of Babylon, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. In addition to its grandeur, Babylon was also a cultural, religious, and intellectual center. It was so influential that it became a symbol in the Bible, associated with arrogance and downfall. And that's where Saddam comes in. In 1986, in the midst of the war against Iran, he decided to rebuild Babylon. Inspired, or rather obsessed, by Nebuchadnezzar, he launched a project to rebuild the city on top of the ruins. Millions of dollars were invested in palaces, walls, and modern replicas. And to make it clear who was behind it all, Saddam had his own name engraved on the bricks, side by side with that of the ancient king. Some clay blocks read, "Erected by Saddam, son of Nebuchadnezzar, to glorify the rebirth of Iraq." Others read, "In the reign of the victorious Saddam Hussein, renovator of Babylon." The problem is that none of this respected the archaeological heritage. The new buildings ended up covering and damaging original parts that were still preserved. And after Saddam fell, the situation only got worse. The place became a military base for American and Polish troops. Today, what you see there is a mixture of ruins and modern concrete, with graffiti, broken glass, and abandoned structures. In the end, the attempt to resurrect Babylon ended up burying what was left of it. Number 4. Cities and places. Many people associate Iraq only with Baghdad, but the country goes far beyond that, especially for those who like places with soul and history. Starting with Babylon itself. Even with Saddam's megalomaniacal attempt to rebuild it, the site still retains impressive original parts. The Ishtar Gate, for example, is a replica, but it gives a good idea of the splendor of the ancient Babylonian capital. Nearby are the ruins of the ziggurat of Borsippa, a monumental construction that many associate with the legendary Tower of Babel. To the south is the ziggurat of Ur, a step pyramid over 4,000 years old. It is said that Abraham, a central figure for Jews, Christians, and Muslims, was born there. In the far north, Erbil stands out. The capital of Iraqi Kurdistan, it is home to a fortified citadel, considered one of the oldest continuously inhabited human settlements in the world. And for those who think Iraq is just sand, the southern marshes prove otherwise. The Hamar marshes are a veritable labyrinth of water, with floating houses, canoes, and unique biodiversity. In the 90s, Saddam ordered the region to be drained to punish the Shiites who lived there after the First Gulf War. In a few months, more than 90% of the marshes dried up. It turned to dust. After he fell, the marshes refilled. The Ma'dan, a people who have lived there for about 5,000 years, were able to return to their homes. But now there is another threat: drought. The level of the Euphrates River, which originates in Turkey, has fallen by almost half since the 70s. Countries such as Turkey, Syria, and Iran have built dozens of dams, diverting water to their crops and cities. The water disappears, the buffalo die, and with them, an entire culture that has survived for millennia is left behind. Number 5. Population and languages. Now that you understand where Iraq is located, a little of its history, and the places that look like movie sets, it's time to talk about the most interesting part: the people. With almost 40 million inhabitants, Iraq is a true ethnic melting pot. Arabs form the majority, but they are not alone. The mountainous north of the country is home to the Kurds, a people with their own language, culture, and identity, who live scattered across several countries in the region. In Iraq, they have an autonomous government, security forces, and even their own flag. Further to the center are the Turkmen, who have Turkish roots. There are also the Assyrians, who are descended from one of the world's oldest civilizations and still speak dialects of Aramaic, the same language spoken in the time of Jesus. Another important group is the Yazidis, who follow a unique religion with elements of Islam, Christianity, and Zoroastrianism. They believe in 7 angels, the most important of which is the peacock angel, a symbol of light and renewal. For centuries, this belief was misinterpreted as devil worship, which led to the group being persecuted by various regimes, including in more recent times. The country is also home to Armenians, Persians, and Mandeans, a group that preserves ancient religious traditions linked to the figure of John the Baptist. Arabic and Kurdish are the official languages, but depending on where you are, everything changes. In Kirkuk, Turkmen dominates the markets. In villages near Dohuk, Aramaic is the everyday language. And in mosques in Najaf, sermons are sometimes delivered in Persian. All this diversity transforms any tea khane, a traditional tea house, into a veritable course in cultural coexistence. And no matter what language you speak, the expression ahlan wa sahlan, meaning welcome, comes up in every conversation, usually accompanied by black tea so sweet that it makes dessert unnecessary. But as soon as the subject turns to religion, the tone of the conversation changes as well. Number 6. Religion and beliefs. Iraq is officially an Islamic country, but what few people know is that there are 2 major branches within Islam, and that is precisely where many things begin to take shape. On one side are the Sunnis, who are the majority in most Muslim countries. On the other are the Shiites, who represent the majority of the population in Iraq, about 60%. The division between them arose shortly after the death of the Prophet Muhammad, and since then has become one of the most enduring disputes in history. In simple terms, the Sunnis believed that Muhammad's successor should be chosen by the community. The Shiites, on the other hand, argued that the leader had to be someone from his family, in this case his son-in-law Ali. The fight lasted for centuries, and in Iraq, it gained an even more tense chapter during the Saddam Hussein era. Remember the southern marshes we mentioned earlier? Well, that order to dry everything up with dikes and canals was not just an environmental measure. Saddam was Sunni, and he ordered the destruction of the marshes as a way of punishing the Shiites who lived there after they revolted against his government. Number 7. The cuisine. Forget the idea that Arab food is just kibbeh and esfiha. Iraqi cuisine has a soul of its own, with dishes that come from ancient traditions and have very distinctive flavors. One of the most emblematic is mazgoof, a freshwater fish opened in the shape of a butterfly and slowly roasted over date wood embers. Another very common dish is dolma, with vegetables stuffed with rice and spices. Kebab also appears, but with local touches, such as lamb marinated in yogurt and garlic. And you can't talk about food in Iraq without mentioning bread. They say it originated there, in ancient Mesopotamia. It was flat, dry, and needed to be dipped in water to soften. Today, the preparation has changed, but bread remains sacred and is part of every meal. In more traditional homes, meals are eaten on the floor, on rugs. Cutlery is almost decorative. Much is eaten with the hands or with a spoon. Table manners have their own codes. If someone offers you something, refusing right away can be seen as rude, and that's why the host will insist. The tip is accept, even if only a little. And if you don't want any more food, put your hand on your chest and say you're full. Eating everything on your plate can imply that you want more. Now, for those with a sweet tooth, Iraq is a real treat. There is katayef, a type of stuffed crepe, halva made with sesame seeds, kanafe with cheese and sweet syrup, and zardar, a pink rice pudding made with sugar, rose water, and spices. Speaking of sugar, did you know that around the 9th century, sugar was used as medicine in Iraq? It was believed to cure diseases, and doctors at the time prepared syrups and infusions with fruits and spices. In the following centuries, even European doctors adopted the idea. There are even reports of doctors who ordered their patients to blow sugar into their eyes to relieve irritation. Number 8. Social customs and etiquette. Since we're talking about table manners, it's worth mentioning that social customs are taken very seriously in Iraq. Etiquette there is full of codes that show respect, hierarchy, and hospitality. And understanding this makes all the difference. A simple example. If an elderly person enters the room, everyone is expected to stand up. Men, in particular, should stand up to greet women who are with children. It may seem overly formal, but in Iraq it is a sign of good manners. Now, pay attention to your feet. Pointing the soles of your shoes at someone or crossing your legs in front of another person is considered rude. You should also avoid overly praising objects in your host's home, as they may feel obliged to give them to you as a gift out of courtesy. Another important point, hands. The left hand is considered unclean because it is associated with personal hygiene. Therefore, gestures, greetings, and gifts should be made with the right hand, or with both hands as a sign of extra respect. There is also a common everyday expression, na'iman. This word is said after someone gets out of the shower or gets a haircut. In Iraq, this is the equivalent of saying, bless you, after someone sneezes. It may seem like a minor detail, but forgetting to say this can be interpreted as a lack of consideration. And if you are the punctual type, be aware that schedules are much more flexible in Iraq. Being late for social engagements is common, and no one gets stressed about it. What really matters is your presence, attention, and respect. Number 9. Wedding traditions. Just like customs, Iraqis are full of traditions, and one of the most striking is weddings. In fact, Iraqi weddings are a real spectacle, and not just because of the party, but because of the ritual that surrounds everything, from choosing the bride and groom to the final ceremony. In most cases, weddings are still arranged by families. Sometimes the bride and groom don't even know each other beforehand, especially in rural areas. When there is interest, a process of mutual investigation begins, almost like a criminal investigation, where families evaluate reputation, religion, finances, and even genetics. The first formal stage is called mashaya, a meeting between the men of the two families, where the official proposal is made. Then comes the exchange of rings, followed by several separate parties, one for the groom, one for the bride, one for the relatives, one just for women, and so on. In some regions, the bride says yes to the judge or clergyman up to 40 times before the marriage is official. And here's a curious detail. During the ritual, she stands with her feet in a basin of water with flowers, and above her head, Two women hold a white cloth, while another sprinkles sugar on her, a symbol of sweetness and good omens for the future. Number 10. Soccer. And now let's talk about a passion that transcends religion, ethnicity, and borders. Soccer. In Iraq, the sport is taken seriously, whether among Shiites, Sunnis, or Kurds. All it takes is a ball rolling to bring together fans, cheers, and excitement. Even in the most difficult times, the games never stopped. There are games in packed stadiums, of course, but also on dirt fields in the middle of nowhere, with stone goalposts and barefoot children shouting the names of Messi or Ronaldo. In simple neighborhoods, it is common to see young people playing in the street, between parked cars, improvising with whatever they have. And as modest as the setting may be, the passion is enormous. In recent years, Iraq has begun to rediscover another kind of wealth, its own past. Between soccer fields, there are projects restoring the mosaics of the Ishtar Gate, training local guides in the Euphrates marshes, and encouraging Kurdish families to open their homes to teach embroidery and cooking to travelers. Instead of caravans, backpackers arrive. Instead of scrolls, there are cell phones. But the essence is the same: people walking through lands where history began. Now tell me, which of these curiosities surprised you the most? Saddam's reconstruction of Babylon, sugar as medicine, or weddings full of flowers on the feet and sugar on the head? Tell us here in the comments. If you liked the video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell, because at the next destination, Bello Mundo will take you to another surprising corner of the planet. See you there.